All right. So, Xandri, are you familiar with the segment Totally Random Questions? Have you seen anything on gaming, kinda? At some point, I assume some
I've
guest will watch
I've
this.
seen the titles. I haven't
Okay.
actually watched the videos yet. I haven't gotten caught up, but I have seen the titles. So,
Okay.
and I
So
do all of your polls too.
you're ahead of some. But
Okay.
basically, the title pretty much gives it away. Um, you are here to answer some totally random questions, and so to kind of guide this along, so it doesn't follow like a typical "Who are you?" and all of that. I'm gonna pull my questions from magazines, and you are getting yours from Consumer Reports. So, Consumer Reports has a whole thing on your essential guide to online safety. We'll, of course, adjust the question slightly a bit so we can talk about you and your content and the fact that you're a full time 14 creator with a history in World of Warcraft. And the very first thing is they kind of talk about where they come from, and they talk about the first thing here is you got to get ahead of like stalkers. And so when you have people on stream, I know that like online privacy is a very real thing. You share a fairly large amount of your life with your community.
Yeah.
How do you decide kind of where boundaries are, and then like how do you, I guess, make sure that you're kind of setting expectations?
I never used to, honestly. Like it's probably too much, but I never really thought about it, and it was more of like I just didn't say anything about anything at all. So people would be like, where are you located? And I would say East Coast, or like I wouldn't even say New York or anything like that. And and a lot of people would talk about getting like a PO box because that was a big thing at the time. And I was just like, well, if I did, I'd drive to a different county and I get the PO box there, so that like and it was I was really weird about it. And again, it's probably like TMI, but it was because of like people I was with at the time and whatnot. But now because I've moved, I feel a lot more comfortable when people are like, "Oh, so you're new to Wisconsin?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I used to live in Syracuse." Because I
Right.
don't live in Syracuse anymore, and there isn't really anything there that would trace me to where I am in Wisconsin. And when people ask, I usually say an hour out of Green Bay. So I'm a little bit more, for lack of a better term, loose with it,
Sure.
and I'm a lot less worried about it now because in the same sense too, like once things actually start to open up, a lot more. Like I want to go to cons and I want to go to community events like around here or like in
Sure.
states that are like around Wisconsin, and people are probably going to figure it out, and I'm just going to need to be like to know that certain things could happen, and if they do, like I need to be able to like protect myself. But honestly, I'm not that worried about it anymore. And I don't know if that's like a really like lackadaisical way to go about it, but I'm really not. I don't know.
No,
It's
I
a tough
get it. I
question.
get it. Mine just comes from the boundaries. It's not. It's not. I mean, some part of me is aware like of the stalkers proposed here in the interview, but or in
Mhm.
their guide. But for me, I think it's more about. Um, I don't always focus my life on video games, and my channel that's about video games really does focus pretty heavily on video games. And so I
Mhm.
think it's about kind of setting those clear boundaries so that like on the weekends I don't play a lot. And so like when people invite me to discords and stuff, like I'm not going to be real active. And so just kind of setting that expectation and saying like when I'm not streaming, like as I've moved to full time, I noticed that the hobby side of my gaming takes a much bigger backseat.
Mhm.
And so when people are like,
Diminishes.
"Oh, you want to come? Do you want to come to this thing? Do you want to come be part of, hey, we're going to go run this raid on these nights?"
Mhm.
I play video games online 30 hours a week. And so to go tack a 12-hour raid schedule onto it, you're talking about me moving into that 40 plus hours a week of gameplay. And that's
Yeah.
assuming I don't already have some side projects, which I do. So
Right.
I don't know. Like I'm definitely aware of it. I think as people talk about terms like swatting and all that, like that is a real thing. Um,
Mhm.
I don't know how you get in front of it.
I actually had one time that I was worried about that. And it was a circumstance where I was playing WoW and someone was really upset about getting kicked from the guild, and that same person was in chat. And he was kicked for a multitude of reasons. Like
Sure.
he was being really mean to people, all this stuff, like really toxic, and there was no reason for it. And so it was someone that I was pretty sure knew one of my like relatives or someone that I actually grew up with, and so I was nervous that the person actually knew where I was, and so I actually called the police station to warn them that if they did get any types of phone calls, that like just to call ahead, because I wasn't sure what I could actually do, and I was
Sure.
just like, if you do get something like this, like there's nothing going on, this is the situation, and I just wanted to call ahead and let you know that you might get a call.
Sure.
And they never actually sent anyone like even to check on me, and nothing ever actually happened. But that's the only thing I could think of doing at the time, because it all took place on stream, and that's the only time that I've ever been nervous about it. I haven't had another time like when I've been streaming or in my community that I've actually been nervous about.
The only time we've gotten threats, they've all been directed at Brian. So
that's so bad. I don't mean to lie.
It's like I know I'm making light of something that like we actually both took incredibly seriously. But as a joke, it's like, wow. Yeah, we have taken them seriously and all of that, but we've never gotten anything directed at me, which is interesting because I'm the cutscene skipper. I'm the guy that says that I don't like certain things about the games. Like, it's just a matter of time till a criticism puts me on somebody's list.
Sure.
You know, because I play games that I don't think are perfect. Red tape and confusion is the next thing, and this is kind of a section about like, you know, removing yourself from lists and stuff like that. So it's kind of like step part of the two of that, but I think I would actually turn this around. How do you feel about content creators protecting the people that are on your stream, especially strangers that get put in your parties? I know you just recently posted a video where you showed kind of some mistakes you've made in the past, you know, or mistake, and like, how do you decide when to show somebody's name, when not to, like, what do you feel that in return you owe, or like even with like reaction videos, what's the outward approach of just privacy because you're turning their content into content?
Right. I think like for the most part, if it was anything that I was doing in game in a party, normally it's something that I'm leveling up or something that I'm learning, because that's what I'm focusing on right now. And 14 is just like, I haven't played this job yet and I want to level it up because I want to get my Amuro. And the big joke is that I'm not going to get it before 6.0, but that I do want that. And so I'm going into things with fresh eyes, and I might not be able to complete my job as it should be completed.
Sure.
So I haven't been worried about like, if you can see people in my party or if you can see people on meters, because I'm not normally going to say anything about them. Although in that video, I was irritated because someone came in and was pulling a bunch of stuff on purpose.
Yeah, I saw the clips.
Running around rooms. And I normally do not get that way, but I was just like, okay, A, I'm tanking. B, I'm tanking Arm Veil. And C, like, you're here and being, and people were saying stuff to him.
Oh, they're so far. They're like all the way across the level. Like, it's not like, oh, they pulled the next pack. It's like you pan out, you zoom off into the distance, and they're like, ah.
Yeah, like never chatted in party chat, not a single thing. And then we get to like probably 2 bosses, maybe before the final boss, and we're standing there, and I'm waiting for loot to finish so that I can get rid of him. And he starts dancing, because the whole time I thought it was a bot, right?
Yeah.
But then he started checking like loot stuff to see if there was anything that he could like loot to extend the timer. And I was like, and then he starts dancing with the person that's dancing, waiting for the timer. And I'm like, okay. And that wasn't even like a question of judgment or like how I would feel about like talking about people in party chat, because I haven't really come across that situation. I think the only other time was with you, and it was just the person that was like botting or like AFK, whatever. And I didn't even know how to kick anyone.
I've never had to initiate a vote kick before that.
Yeah, I never had either.
So I was like, I don't know how to initiate this.
Right.
I'd like to kick this person.
Yeah, and I'd never really thought about what my approach would be, like if I would want people's names on there, because I've never really talked bad about anyone, and that was the first time, and then it ended up being someone that was just messing with me from stream. But as far as like content creators go, with like reaction content, I feel like as long I don't mind reacting to their video and tagging them or whatever, and usually they actually, you know, like the content and they come over, you know, they subscribe and like things as well.
Yeah, mine's been overwhelmingly positive so far.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of that is because when I try to react to stuff, like I might give my opinion, but also state multiple times that it's my opinion and still be personable about it. Like, it's not like I'm trash talking someone. Like, if someone sent me a video and I was like, and I just trash talked the person the whole time, then I'd be like, maybe I shouldn't post this video. But I try to make it seem like more of a discussion even rather than a reaction. So like, oh, well, this person said this, and then I think that it should be like this. So I think the only time that I did mess up, and not even necessarily about a person's privacy, but I had actually reacted to a content creator. I don't even know if I should give the name. I still have the video up because she was fine about it. but I didn't know that the person had identified as female. And so I kept saying he through the whole reaction.
Sure.
And then got the comment, oh, well, actually, like, I really loved your video and I love your reaction, but I would prefer she, her. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, now that I know that, if I react to any more of your stuff or whatever, like, I'm really sorry.
Easy
and
fix.
That's what I'll do, you know, and fix it. But,
yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever come across that too. So I feel like for the most part, I'm pretty lenient with stuff like that. But if I ever posted something that was really controversial, I would probably either question whether or not I should post it, or whether or not I should even like say who the content creator was if people don't actually know the video or can tell from the voice.
That pretty naturally moves into the next section where they talk about the continuous, ongoing, and then they're like removing of data, which begs the question: as a content creator, is there ever a circumstance under which you would take a video down? I mean, obviously you can't see every possible outcome situation, but it's just a general rule. Do you think that things should be taken down? At the very least, things like DPS guides when they become outdated. On the high end, obviously hot takes where you feel you really got something wrong.
Mm-hmm. I think more of if something becomes outdated, have an extension to the video. Or if I did decide that I got something wrong, like for an example, there have been certain content creators that have done like first impressions of things. And they do a first impression, and let's say their first impression was very biased because of how they felt toward the game, and people were just really trying to get them to play. Or they were comparing it too heavily to something else, and they shouldn't have, and they should have been more objective. So rather than take the video down, I feel like people should, you know, maybe create another video, like a continuation. Like, this was my first look, this was my second look, and I was able to be more objective. And then regardless of what the comments are, I just kind of feel like, this is probably going to be so crude, but when you post a video and you either realize that you were wrong, or someone says that you're wrong because of gatekeeping, or you have someone who's like trolling your channel hard, which has also happened to creators, which has made them stop wanting to create anything, I think that's wrong. I think if you take down a video because of that, it makes it seem like you lose. And you had every right to post the video. It was what you were thinking at the time. And I don't think, in my mind, I don't think that you should let people like that dictate what you post. And if you do go back into things with fresh eyes, you should definitely post another video. But I don't, in my mind, and again, I don't know how this is going to sound if it goes up on a video, but I don't like apology videos.
Okay.
Because it's just like, if you have something and someone comments and says like, hey, you were wrong about this, it's like, comment to them and say, oh, well, next time I'll know.
Right.
But I don't like that. And I also don't like people that would be like, well, your first impression was wrong because you didn't do this with the story, and you didn't do what people would want you to do, and you skipped this and you did this. And it's like, okay, well, it was my first impression. You might have had a different first impression. You might have done things differently, but this was how I played the game. So this is how I, like, if I want to go back and try it your way, then I'll go back and try it your way. But I'm not going to take down the video, and I'm not going to apologize for the video that I posted. But that's just me. Like, that's how I would approach it. Although I haven't come across a situation where I've had to do that. I just know of other people who have. So I guess I can say that that's what I would do, but I'm not exactly sure.
I changed a thumbnail and title once because I used the boss's name in 14, and that was considered a spoiler. And so I took it down and put up the instance's name. As a general rule, if you guys ever see typos in titles, I acknowledge it and I don't edit it. The reason you do not change titles is it actually pushes your video out to the algorithm as a fresh video, and now you don't have the initial views of people who are interested in the video, so you're actually penalizing your video. So do not edit your title, do not edit your tags, do not edit your thumbnail, because you're actually hurting the video unless it's already performing poorly. And so as a general rule, like one of my recent videos, autocorrect grabbed the word thing instead of think. I laughed. I'll be more careful with that word in the future. I'm not going to change it because you got the idea, you got the general idea, and the video is doing well. And so to change it, now all of a sudden the video would do really poorly, and it's not going to continue to reach people, and that's because of the way the algorithm works. But like those are corrections, minor corrections I'll make. But yeah, otherwise I pretty much agree with you. Like apology videos, if anything, are really best put as like, here's my second take based on information I now have. It doesn't actually it doesn't actually change your first take. your first take was still you. You obviously meant that at the time. And so, like, if people come in and they say, hey, you know, you got this wrong because of this and this, then I think, if anything, there's not an apology video there. There's a learning video there. There's something that, you know, let's talk about something like damage meters, right? You posted just something really light. Doesn't matter. You get your rotation wrong by one thing. Okay, well, let's talk about how I got it wrong. And let's talk about maybe other areas that people got things wrong, because I'm probably not the only person that's made a mistake. And then that's an extension to that. You don't need to, like, back up and delete the video because it's still, I don't know, unless it's just so patently false. The other thing is things age out. Like, people don't look at DPS guides that are 4 years old and go, well, this is wrong. It's like, yeah, look at the date it was posted.
Right.
Like, what do you... Okay. So from there it moves to, like, your digital action plan. And they talk about things like password managers and multi-factor authentication and phishing scams. Like, when we talk about, usually these things start getting grouped up. I don't necessarily agree that they should be, but we talk about things like add-ons to games. We talk about things like RMT. We talk about things like you know, WoW tokens or the Eve Plex system or things like that, where there's like a real money to gill kind of legalized version of RMT.
Sure.
What, like, how do you address those topics? Do you have strong feelings on them? Do those feelings change over time? Do you just not really worry about it because it's not you that gets to decide?
Yeah, I feel like as far as like RMT or bots or anything go, I have never actually used a bot for things like that, like a legit bot in game. So like something that would level for you, something that would fish for you, you know, whatever. And I remember in WoW, it was a really big thing for Mythic Siege of Org, for Heroic Siege of Org, when it had come out before the patch that changed Heroic into Mythic. A lot of people got banned for fish bots, because the best food that you could have at the time had to be like a certain type of fish. And so everyone that was going for like world first, server first, whatever, they were looking at those guilds specifically, saw that they were botting and then got rid of them. And then people, to get around it, would literally buy other accounts, create other characters, and have people in the guild level them up that didn't get in trouble for fish botting. So I remember it being a big thing, and I remember talking to a bunch of people about it, but I never took part in it. Or anything like that. I don't mind using add-ons, and when people talk about it, especially for streaming 14 specifically, it's hard for me to address. And really, normally what I say is, I don't care if people use DPS meters. I use a DPS meter. Whether or not I always have it up on stream doesn't mean anything. And I don't use it to call people out. And I don't use it as a form of, well, we don't have enough DPS for such and such, or, well, if you'd casted one more stone instead of healed, like we would have done the boss, whatever. It's more to see like where I am at compared to like other bards or whatever DPS I have at the time. Plus, I think it's fun. Like I'm really big about numbers, and so if I can see like a progression and see actually like getting better, then that's different and whatnot. And whenever people bring it up in chat, even if they discuss it, I'm like, okay, it's a healthy topic to discuss, because most topics, as long as you discuss them, are healthy, and you might actually get opinions or hear other facts that you might not have known. But my big thing is, I use it. I don't care if other people use it. I'd never actually call someone out for being legit bad because of their DPS. I'd call them out for being bad from getting hit by the same thing multiple times. And it would normally be a friend. It wouldn't be some random person. But normally what I say is, okay, if things start to get heated in chat, I'll say, this is my opinion on it. I don't care what your guys' opinions are on it, and I'd rather not have people argue in chat. But that's how I feel about most like risque or taboo topics. It's kind of like, I'll let you guys discuss it to a point. Once things start to get heated and people don't want to be in my chat because they're worried that it might be something with my community and not necessarily like me as a streamer, then it's done. I think the only thing that I've really disagreed with people on is sales for things, because people get upset about actually making gil specifically for 14 by selling runs of whatever, like the new 48-man Savage, or like getting one person in there who could literally be dead the whole run and it wouldn't matter because you could clear it. I've never seen an issue with that, but that's coming from WoW, and I hate saying that. It drives me nuts. Like, I really dislike comparing everything to be like, well, I come from WoW, because that's the trope right now, right?
Right.
It's like you have your diehard 14 players who think like this, and the WoW players are coming over here and they're saying that things are okay. But one of the only ways to make gil unless you crafted in WoW was to sell or one of the only like really good ways to do it for your guild that you could actually like
Sure.
get people to
Sure.
all adhere to.
Yeah.
Was it's
Limit
like
selling limit selling mythic clears right now for
yeah,
25 million gold apiece.
right.
And so
Like
once a
if you
week they
if
can
you
make 25
want,
million gold. They spent 500 million on the world first race. It just makes a big dent in what they spent.
yeah, exactly. Like if you want free repairs, if you want like pots and flasks or whatever, we're gonna do guild sales. You're gonna participate, and that's how we're gonna do it. And so I don't see an issue with it in 14, but
As
people
long
get
as it's
upset
skill,
about it
or if it's money as well. People who
as
pay
long as it's
1,000
skill,
US dollars.
not real money. I mean,
Okay.
but I also haven't come into contact with that either. I think the only time I even heard of guild sales, because I just thought it was a thing that didn't happen in 14, was there was a Zepla video about like the different party finder groups, and she's like, oh, the ones that, you know, sell stuff for Gil. And I was like, oh, well, I don't see a problem with that. And everybody else in chat is freaking out, and I'm just like,
It's a big thing. It's a big thing.
well, I get that now, but at the time I was just like, I don't understand what the big deal. Like, I understand getting the achievement for free, and
Sure.
you know, getting, you know, the kill that you shouldn't have gotten, maybe loot that you shouldn't have gotten, and but I feel like that's one of the things that actually separates the games. Like, yeah, they're both MMOs, but like for WoW, that's like a normal thing that you would use to get gil if you want certain things from your guild, and in 14, it's like it's taboo.
I think it's the
Because
thing
you
that
didn't get it
appeals when you
yourself.
talk about, like in WoW, you talk about Mage Tower. In 14, you talk about like the solo Palace of the Dead run, or you talk about the new the solo one-on-ones that you get for clearing the critical engagements. Those one-on-ones, because that can't, like, outside of letting somebody else sit at your keyboard, that can't be faked, right? That's
Right.
It's just you. It's just you, man. Like there isn't anybody else in there. And like with the solo Palace of the Dead, like the game wasn't even really designed for you to be able to clear it. So it's like, yeah, I mean, people can do it. It's super punishing, and like I think at this point all of the jobs have been beaten on it. But for a long time, I know that there was like a break point, like these jobs are possible, these jobs are not, and then like over time, people have gone through and they've worked their way through all of the impossible jobs. You know, I like when they put things in the game that really can't be faked, because that's our chance to kind of measure up. If you want the mount from a raid boss and you want to pay 25 million units of money to people to get that, it doesn't bother me at all. But I understand why it frustrates people. I don't think they're totally out of left field for feeling that way.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. I just didn't even know it was a thing in 14 until it was brought up, and I was like, oh, well, what's the problem? Like, I get your frustrations, but I don't get why it's taboo in one game and just kind of like looked down upon in another, I guess, is the big thing. Like, people get irritated if you're like in Group Finder and you don't actually
I
look
mean, I
up
think it's
someone's
frustrating
name.
in WoW too. I think there's
Well,
people
yeah.
who don't like that they go into Dungeon Finder and it's all Mythic plus cells.
Right.
Like, I think there are people that don't like that it's spilled so far into their game, and a lot of that is the Gallywinks community isn't doing it anymore, and so like there isn't a third party place for it to take place.
That was a big thing, though. Like, I mean,
Shocking.
just, like,
They were bringing in
normal-
like 11 million gold a day, and they didn't know what to do with it, and they were selling it for real money. I don't know why anybody was surprised about that. Like, what did we think they were doing with billions of gold?
I know.
Obviously, at some point they were going to offload it, and selling it for real money makes sense. Yeah, that's why you need something like WoW to do it, where you need the official developer to handle it if you're going to do it at all. All right. So from here, it talks about like backing up your files, encrypting your devices, lost things, you know, and kind of protecting yourself for the future. We play live service games, and so there's always this kind of ongoing thing. When you're selecting content to clear, especially like this week, we got 5.45. We're about to go into 5.5. How do you decide what order? I'm pivoting this question heavily. How do you decide what order to clear content in live service games, or when to play a game other than the game you're known for? Because you're looking out at like a content schedule where you're like, okay, you stream a lot and you're going to stream months into the future. Like, how do you decide what to get to now? And then what you're going to get to 2 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe later this year, maybe never?
Honestly, it's all been relative and from experience. I was my experience with it and my idea of new content was kind of skewed, because when I started playing 14, which obviously is my main game now, I was just starting out the game when everybody was doing the patches after Stormblood
Sure.
to prep for Shadowbringers. So I knew of the Shadowbringers trailer and I'd watched it, but I didn't have any real idea what was going on. And so everyone was watching me experience the story. And everyone was picking on me about possibly not getting into Shadowbringers by the time it launched. I actually got into the MSQ for Shadowbringers about 2 weeks after launch, maybe 3. And I didn't actually finish the 5.0 content until like 2 months into it because at the time I was working. And I would only play like 2 hours and I would read all of the cutscenes, listen to all like anything that was voiced for 2 hours, maybe like 3 days a week, 3 nights a week. And everybody was super into it and they were excited to see my reaction. So I was like, oh, now that I'm, full time, everybody's going to want to see them when they're live, right? Not thinking about spoilers, not thinking about the fact that there are other people who have cultivated an even bigger community that I have that would be ready, or going into the Savage content just to do the fights and world first things. And so when patches have dropped recently, except for I think until 5.3, I was behind by a couple of weeks, and so people still like to see it. And then around when 5.4 hit, I was on right at launch for my time, and I got right into just unlocking the Savage fights, but I wanted to watch the cutscenes so I could post it on YouTube, not thinking about spoilers. And so multiple people had DM'd me, and they're like, I can't watch your stream because I don't want to spoil myself. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm doing the Savage fights. And they're like, well, yeah, but we're watching the world first for this. And they went through the cutscenes and they didn't do those. And I was like, oh. And okay. And then the same thing was for the FF7 remake. Like, that's really the only other game other than certain other MMOs that I've been interested in. And it was really hard for me because I was so oriented on push getting a community, have people behind you. And then once you have that, like push for partner, or then like once you have these things, you can delve into other games, because I wasn't sure how my viewership would be if I did that. But I decided to one day for a Halloween game, and I still did really well, but it actually hurt my partnership application. But I wouldn't say that I shouldn't have done it. Like, I wouldn't say that it wasn't the right time, because I had a community behind me that would be there no matter what, 50, 60 people, whatever. But obviously it was detrimental for that. And then the FF7 remake, I actually played the day after release, and again, a spoiler thing. So I haven't played it since then.
Right.
Because like we were talking about earlier before we did this, it's kind of like a diminishing thing where, because I'm on my PC all day playing games, talking to people, like, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm getting stuff accomplished, but I'm not playing other games because I'm like, I don't want to play games anymore for the rest of the day. Like, I want to hang out with family. I want to do whatever. So I guess if we're talking about just 14, when to stream things for MSQ is probably if you're not just going right into like if there are fights that come out for the patch, I would say to get to those first and actually stream those. Or even just for like major patches, like major ones, not like a 5.45 Bosja or anything like that, but major story patches, maybe even take a couple days off, and then or like post it on YouTube first, and then, because you're not gonna get, like, everybody's gonna be not wanting to be spoiled by the story. They're going to be watching people do like world first for fights and everything, and or if you are gonna stream, don't stream the story and stream something that you haven't completed yet. So I guess the things that I want to do first are for these point whatever for patches that aren't major story. Take part in those, especially if they're raids, and then keep working on leveling my other jobs, or my crafting and gathering, which I actually haven't touched yet because I do want to do Ishgard restoration.
It's good.
And then when the major and then when the major patches come out, kind of wait like maybe a week and a half, possibly do it on my own since I have an alt on one character, post it on YouTube, and then do it on stream so people can see my reaction, or vice versa. As far as separate games go, I think that at the time I was putting too many eggs in the basket and thinking about only partnership, whereas I think I actually have a really good community now that would watch me play anything, and regardless of numbers, I probably could try out other things. And if I did, probably that week that like an expansion released, play something else and just kind of like hang out, and then like that week or so
So you'll
after.
be late to 6.0 intentionally this time.
Maybe.
5.0 you were late unintentionally.
Yeah, so I might be late intentionally this time. We'll see. I feel like it's just worked out better that way because people were really excited to
I get
see
it.
what my reaction would be rather than day one.
I get it.
So.
I'm going to try to have my EU alt ideally into Shadowbringers before 6.0 drops, watching all the cutscenes and everything. And then that way, I think my 6.0 plan is to skip everything on my main. I don't find trial bosses to be too spoilery for me personally. I know there will still be people who don't watch because they don't want to know, but for me, that, you know, seeing the person at the end of it still says like, well, how did we get there? And so skipping the mid phase cutscenes, skipping things like that where they do all the talking, it's like, oh, this person had to die, but like, did we want to kill them? Did we not want to kill them? Like, I still have a lot of questions, and so like I think, you know, I'm also basing that on the fact that like I've cleared all of ARR and I've been in this game for a long time and I'm still enjoying an ARR playthrough for the very first time now, and it doesn't feel spoiled. So
Right.
I think for me personally, I'll play on launch, but you know. I don't know. Maybe if you just view things from a viewership number, maybe that's not the right play. I don't know. It's interesting to think about because as a creator, you're trying to play things you want to play. You're trying to play things that you believe your community wants to see, and you're trying to base those. And then I know for any creators that balance things with YouTube, you're also like, okay, and then how does this overlap, right? Because you're kind of driving two boats. Some aren't. Some are, if they're on both platforms, they're just exporting things off of stream and pushing them. Some are filming things on stream and then pushing them. Some just stream, just hanging out as they're doing kind of the back end content that fuels the. So like sometimes there's a very primary platform and the other one just really just kind of tags along. But you know, as you look to creators, you know, like that really they are two different forms of content. More and more like it's like, well, how do you balance those? And so, you know, I know as you start to dip your toe a little further into YouTube, I just kind of wondered what your thoughts were on like, how does that work? Because it is, you're juggling a second job.
Yeah, it all depends. If I'm actually recording something, which for the most part I've tried not to do, mainly because I'm better at going off the cuff. So for stream, it's been like, blah, blah, blah. Okay, let me say that again because that didn't make sense. Or don't clip that, guys, and then they clip it anyway and whatever.
Of course.
But I'm a lot better at extemporaneous speech than I am with talking about a set subject.
Okay.
So I was trying to actually do an intro for my video yesterday, and I was like, I had like 10 takes, and then I ran downstairs and I was like, I need a drink. I can't do this. And then I had to like relax and come back up and try to talk. And then half of what I recorded, I got rid of anyway, because I started talking about something completely different. Because instead of a straight line for discussion, for me, it's like, I have point A, I have point B, and I'm going to get there like this.
Right.
So that was kind of tough. I think the other thing is just like the more along the analytics and things like that. So it's like seeing I haven't been super stable with it either because I've been streaming every day. Mm-hmm. So once I'm done streaming, it's like, I don't even want to record. Or I don't even want to edit because I don't want to be at my PC. Because I've been streaming between 6 and 8 hours, but I was streaming when I started full time between 10 and 12 for certain days, every day, except for the weekends, which is why I take weekends off. But now I'm trying to make it, if I can get up on time, or when I want to get up rather, and my PC works, like streaming earlier so I can get done earlier and then focus on editing and things like that. So I have something up every day for subscribers to look for. But I think a lot of the subscribers I received back when I was really starting everything for YouTube and actually thinking about posting stuff was either from Shadowbringers MSQ, or they like to see what my reactions were to like certain people talking about 14. And now those things either A, aren't as relevant, or B, people aren't searching them, or C, the only reason that people subscribed to me in the first place was for those two things. So if I put anything else up, even though my subscribers are getting notified, they're not necessarily watching the video because it's not something they're interested in. So I just have to figure out exactly how I want to tackle it going forward and what games I actually want to put on there. So like right now, it's just kind of a mishmash of things. It's mainly 14, but it's mainly like talking about how other people feel about 14, except for my MSQ stuff. So The video that I actually put up yesterday, I think, was the first time I really legitimately recorded something other than what I thought were my saddest moments in Shadowbringers and things like that. So I don't have a full direction yet, and once I get there, I think it'll be better. But yeah, it's
Cool.
different. It's really different.
Well, until then, where can people find you?
At Zanblast Productions, if you want to find me on YouTube, and then my Twitch is just Xandri, twitch.tv/XANDRII. It's not an L, it's an I. Everyone always picks on me for Xandril, but
Cool.
Xandri.
That's it.
That's it.